Well, I encourage anyone to figure it out. If we can send a man to the moon, we can probably figure out how to make a living in a beautiful area. If you like a beach, that's fine. I happen to believe in what Nietzsche said, don't trust the flatlanders.
Well, it's an honor to meet you. It's fantastic. I got to watch your film the other day. I really, really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for watching it. It's very new, and tonight is the very first screening, so I'm still in that state of not really understanding what I made. I know what is inside it, I just don't know how it will unfold.
Is any of the family going to be here for it?
Oh, yeah. There will be 6 of my dad's 9 kids are here today.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's an amazing part of this story.
And yeah, we're very close. Nice. And I have a screening in New York, so others will be there, and so it's supportive. Nice. And he'll be there too.
Oh, cool, awesome. As a documentarian, there's often the sense of responsibility because you're usually filming a subject matter, or you're taking in a subject matter that's has an importance, or you want to make sure that you're doing the person justice. Because if you're doing like a one-on-one documentary about a person, you kind of want to keep there's a lot of things that do happen and come out in these situations, mm-hmm. and you want to do them right. And so I'm kind of curious from your perspective, in that it's your personal story as much as it is your father's and everybody else that's involved in this story. Was that kind of a freeing process for you as a documentarian, or was that more pressure?
I feel like you just read my mind because I've been writing a couple of essays. Part of having my film come out has been that people have asked me to write thought pieces, and I have just decided that sort of hinging on what you just said, that I want to write a piece about the nature of documentary being like a screen door. So usually we think a door will go if you're shooting from the outside in. So the door swings and you're running in as fast as you can to get that proverbial foot in the door, and look out people who are very different from you, maybe from a different country, different class, have accomplished different things, or there's so much in documentary, I think, about the haves filming the have-nots. In fact, I just saw a film yesterday that won all the prizes at Slamdance last year. I'm not Slamdance, excuse me, Sundance last year, all the documentary prizes, and it was so much that, and it wasn't aware of what you were just saying, of like that notion of well, what is it that I now have attained? How do I measure my success because I get to understand someone's life I didn't understand before, or that I get to look through this window and they don't notice. It's always this, they don't notice I'm there, but they do. We know they do. So I've actually done my share of that for years. I've looked at Vietnamese people after, about 20 years after the war in Vietnam. I went there in the 90s. I've done work in my hometown around the African American community, and so like that sense of how am I like someone and how am I different. So I kind of think, and I won't say that I planned it this way because I didn't at all, but now that I think about it, I think it's my turn to let that door open out and see how I can work and, in a sense, collaborate with my audience as to how they will reckon with my own wondering about my family and my dad. But that wasn't a plan, but it's something that I realized, especially in the year 2020, when we're really often in documentary being asked, who are you as you look at someone else? What is your position and how do you reveal your subjectivity?
Right, yeah. So. This has taken over 50 years of footage. And I'm just kind of...
You're exactly right, because the very first footage I did not shoot, it was the year my brother Ira was born. It's from 65.
Yeah. It's interesting to me, obviously you weren't in the phase mindset of actually making a movie, but when did you feel like you were going to really turn this into something and make it into a film?
Okay. I would say it was exactly 29 years ago.
Oh, wow.
So in 1991, I started to think about the nature of documentary in a kind of what do you say, like epistemological way, like what is the meaning of trying to document some aspect of the world. So I was trying to understand to what extent you could grasp the life of another person without being inside their heads, because everybody has an interior world, and how can you connect with it, and how can you manifest that with your camera or your audio. And audio is so critical. It's almost more critical, I think. It really says more. But so I had my share of frustrations around just being a daughter, and being a daughter of a dad who didn't play by all the rules. But lots of people have problems with their dads or mothers or parents in general. And so I was at a point where I was just starting to become pretty comfortable with filmmaking as a way to express myself. And I thought, I'm going to start filming with Dad, because actually maybe my art making will help me feel more at ease with who I am as a daughter. And it would give me both closeness and distance. So I'm being a little more articulate than I was at that moment, because now I've done it. But I just said, I'm going to film with Dad. I'm going to make a film about Dad. It just took me a long time, because I kept shooting, and it became kind of a running funny line in my family. You know, are you still making that Dad movie? And in fact, the cans of film that I shot say Dad film. And they go back a long time.
Did it start with like the intimate moments? Because there's some intimate moments between the two of you that are really poignant in this film.
Yeah. There it started. You know, there's a shot in the film where we're sitting in this very noisy balcony at a Holiday Inn in Chinatown in San Francisco, and I wish I'd paid as much attention to sound as you do, because it would have survived a bit better. I also shot at that time with my father's second wife, Diana, and I tell the whole story of how she became part of my consciousness, and also with a girlfriend. So I just started to collect the material that was like my witnessing of our lives, not witnessing of other people's lives, but of our like small family community.
Which turns out to grow
bigger.
and grow.
Bigger. I mean, I didn't even know at that time, but already at that time, I had another sister, but I didn't know about her.
Oh, you started so early in your life filming this. I'm wondering how much of that practice and doing that, and then when you decided to actually make this into a film, you having already done so many documentaries and having gone through that process, how much of each of those things helped to get you designed into this film? Did the experience help you really create the narrative that you portray, or?
Well, one thing I'll say that I learned through my other film work, all the detours I took away from making the film about my dad, was especially with conversation, or what we call interviews. What happens, and this is a typical paradigm, I'm talking here and you're nodding. So that's affirming to me. That's saying that what I'm trying to express works in your scenario of what you're doing today. You're validating me, I'm validating you. And I found that when I was doing that, looking back over the years, that there was a way that people tried to perform for me, in the way that you're kind of the director and I'm your actor.
Yeah.
So I'm giving you what you want.
Yeah.
And so I felt like I was maybe being too manipulated that way, and that as I was sitting there doing a traditional interview, even if I wasn't recording image, like just doing an audio interview, there was this body language that made something very specific happen that maybe I think I was in too much control. And I think what's exciting about documentary is when you lose control.
Yeah.
So I decided to do quite a few of my audio interviews in total darkness. Not just darkness like nighttime, but in closets, without any light coming in through the under the closet door, so that I would have closeness with my sister Dana or my brother Adam or my sister Julia. And then we kind of got, it was as if we were in the same like audio
Aura.
vacuum or aura or cosmos
Yeah.
that was very, very hermetic, so that we would stay kind of to the task. But they weren't doing it for me, they were doing it sort of for this collaborative endeavor of kind of figuring out who our dad is and what he is to us. Not just who he is, but I think one thing I discovered making the film is it's equally important to find out how a parent or a significant person in your life has impacted you, not just to understand how they work.
Was it freeing then, knowing that you're so disciplined with your craft? Was it freeing that you got to use so many different devices to make this movie?
That was not something that was completely under my control, because
Right.
the only consistency technologically is 16 millimeter film.
Right.
Thank God it hasn't died yet. In fact, it's coming back, I kind of would
Yeah,
say.
it's the
Kodak
vinyl
is
of the film world.
It's the vinyl, and not just nostalgia in that
Yeah,
way,
yeah.
but I think that that there is a love for them. Well, there's also the love for analog audio too.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but in contrast to that, the video image that then became the digital image changed about every 2 years. So I use the same camera now, a 16 millimeter camera that I bought in 1987 for $400. Used.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And how many video cameras have I had? Probably 15.
Yeah.
And that goes through starting with VHS, also High 8,
Super.
High 8, Mini DV, then digital, and so files and all the different ways. So that was one of the biggest challenges of this film.
Interesting.
I had made a film that I thought was a lot about looking out, and I wanted to make another film that was about looking in. And like my next project is about looking out and in at the same time.
What's this going to be about?
Well, part of it's about you. How do you feel, Dad? Very funny.
As far back as I can remember, Dad engaged with the world in ways that inspired, excited, and sometimes confused me.
You could feel that.
He's been the kind of person who was able to keep these profound secrets.
Dana, can you scoot a little bit closer? Ever don't do that.
But these are the things that children don't need to know about their dad.
He doesn't lie, he just doesn't tell you what's going on. It's a lot of omission. Dad had his own language, and we were expected to speak it. I loved him so much that I agreed to his syntax, his set of rules.
One of the hallmarks of documentaries is going into the project with an idea, and then the idea kind of spinning out of control, or something happens that you discover along the way, whether you're filming, whether you're in the editing process, and it becomes a whole other animal. And with this being about you and your family, there is something that does come to light. I don't want to spoil it for everybody, but there is an idea that happened in this film.
Right.
So how did you look at that? Were you going, okay, now I have a documentary, or was it more like wow, I have to deal with this and to make a movie out of
I
it?
would say the second.
Yeah.
I was not prepared at all. I came to understand something in this film, which is that we all have a way of controlling our own emotions, and I think there's some of us have a willful amnesia or willful, like, even though actually you can't will something to totally disappear,
Right.
but you place it as far away as possible. So sometimes I would have an inkling that I had a sibling I didn't know about, but then I'd say, oh, I'm going to take, that's just, maybe that's not true. Maybe
Yeah.
if I don't keep searching, it won't be true at all. And I think one does that a lot of times in
Sure.
one's life. Or you're always saying, this is the wrong time.
Sure. Well, it's all about who you are, right? Trying to find who you are.
Yeah.
And you go on that journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that actually, in general, in documentary making, one thing I've learned after making quite a few films, is that the biggest obstacle in a film project, the thing that makes you weep, that keeps you up at night, that makes you think you can't continue, is actually what's most interesting about it.
Yeah.
So one of the things for me in this was writing the narration, which was the part where I was going to be revealing the most about what was going on in my head. So I have 37 versions of this film. So there's the version where there's more rage, there's the version where there's more forgiveness. and like a good photograph, how can you have both?
Right.
But I was constantly recutting the whole film. I worked with a wonderful editor, Rebecca Shappas, who is an artist, was actually a student of mine, so this is her first big project.
Oh, nice.
And she and I would look at the material and kind of discuss like the level of candor that I could give an audience.
Sure.
And then I just really had to let it all out.
Nice. That's awesome. Did you have any apprehension about yourself being in the film for time periods? Because there are moments when it seems like you want to be on camera but you're not, and then there are moments when you're on camera and you don't feel like you want to be
Right.
there.
That's very insightful of you. I'm not so used to being on camera.
Right.
I'm more of a behind the camera person because I think I can observe better and allow for my own introspection and that kind of thing. But I guess that was part of the nature of the vulnerability of it. Though I don't think you're as vulnerable by showing your face as you are by speaking.
Yeah.
In many ways.
Yeah. Yeah, and that,
Especially in our society today, where people control their image and to such an extent. But I
Sure.
think it's hard to control what you're going to say, and otherwise it's very inauthentic.
yeah, sure. What do you love about being an indie filmmaker?
I love the fact that a film can contain so many different threads of expression. So I write a lot of poetry. In fact, I'll be doing a poetry reading here in Park City on
Nice.
Sunday at 2:00.
Nice.
So the fact that I can do interviews and travel to places that I don't know very much about and immerse myself, or I can bring in politics as well as like a sort of craft of art making into one vessel, that's pretty incredible. And so that's what I appreciate most, that film can contain all of those modes of expression.